we are bringing partners home in the sense that like my husband has partners that our kids know, or at least one of them that our kids know. And my partner has been to the house quite a lot of times. And so they do know that those people are our partners.
Hello and welcome. Today I have Ariela Salinas Fiora. She is Ella. I love it. Aya. Okay, excuse me. As a fat person, she is also an actor, writer, teacher, producer, director, maker, intimacy professional, sex educator, wife, mother, death doula, and an advocate for queer, Latin, and plus-size representation in theater, film, and television. And I saw her perform in her one-woman show, and she's adorable. And I'm so excited to have you here, Ariela. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me, Karen. Really excited to be here.
So I met Ariela at an informational or educational program through one of the conferences that I went to on sexual medicine, where we have something called a SAR, which is a sexual attitude reassessment. And we meet people from different walks of life and sexuality to help us better in our practices. And I loved Ariela's story, one, because she is helping change our perception of fat people and how we interact with them. And two, because she had an interesting family life story that's very much related to life and sex. I don't know if you're 50, but after 50.
I am. I'm 52.
Oh, so. Wow. Don't look a day over 51 is my
See, exactly.
would say. So I wanted to hear a lot about her story because I found it really interesting and I thought it could be informative to the audience. So I'm going to start right there and maybe give a little bit of your background and how you ended up in the family situation and how that's been for you.
My background, my bio said, I went to UCLA. I met my husband soon after. We were very, very young. We moved in together after 3 months and we got married 2 years and a month after meeting as 23, 24-year-olds. Very, very young. And at the time, like I knew that was odd. And I would say, oh, this is my first husband. I was like, well, whatever. I was like, well, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. We started exploring non-monogamy about 7 years into our relationship and have been doing it in one way or another, like since then. And it has been just in this last few years that we've become more open about it with our friends and family and just the public in general. And in fact, like, as you know, in the show that you saw, I talk about it a fair bit. And for a lot of my friends and family coming to see the show, that was their first informational introduction to this information. So I joked that having been an actor since I was a little girl, I'm like, well, I guess I had to come out dramatically. I had to write a whole freaking show about it. Like I couldn't just send an email.
Let's back up a little bit because I interviewed a couple a little over a year ago who had opened up their marriage after, I think they'd known each other since they were 16. So they were in their late 30s. I'm curious how that initial conversation with your husband happened. Where did that come from? You were not that long into your marriage by societal standards to then decide to do this could be construed in very many ways.
The first conversation that I remember was in a car ride. We were on a trip. Our kids were relatively young at the time, so they were not paying attention to anything we were saying. But we started talking about the 7-year itch specifically, and because we were coming up on 7 years. And the conversation was really about, theoretically, if we were to do something like that. And at the time, we sort of referred to it as a 7-year itch pass, like as if it was like a one-time use pass.
Right.
And so it was like, what would be the parameters for that if we were going to do that? And so we started this conversation. And my husband is very loquacious. The man loves to talk. So it was a very long, and I certainly do as well, but it was a very long, detailed conversation about rules and parameters and how we would feel about things. And really, at the end of the conversation, I was like, is this still hypothetical? Because we had gotten like so specific. And honestly, like at that point, it kind of still was hypothetical. But as we continued talking about it, the realization that neither of us really felt like human beings were naturally monogamous creatures, and the fact that we didn't feel like there would be anything, especially in the way that we set up the parameters in the beginning, that would hurt our marriage in any way. And for me, I really, I'm a kisser. And doing theater and doing as like having that like as my background and also what I was doing, like you connect with people, you get very like close to people, and then like, and I have made out with most of my friends like before I got married, right? So it's like even now, like, or at that point, it was just weird to like not be able to do that anymore. And so like for me, that was the thing, like being able to have the freedom that like if I'm in a situation and I just felt like kissing someone, that I could kiss them. And in fact, at that point, I had done that with a friend of ours at a party where we were both drinking. And I told my husband about it the next day because he was also at the party. And I was nervous because we hadn't had that conversation and we hadn't established anything. And it just sort of happened. And so the next morning, because we had slept over at our friend's house, I was like, hey, I'm pretty sure I made out with this person last night. And he was like, awesome. That's his response, which was not at all I was thinking it was going to become a whole thing. So like that had already happened. So like having the sort of parameters and like things set about continuing to be able to do that on occasion, just it, yeah, I mean, it just made sense.
I think in our last conversation, you said that you had felt that you were oriented towards multiple partners from a very young age. Can you
Yes.
explain that? Because some might, of course, as a woman, a young woman who likes multiple partners, you get that label of slut, right?
Oh yeah.
As opposed to a man. So how do you know when it's just you're being promiscuous and at a certain age, or you really are oriented towards, more than one partner?
Yeah, I mean that's a really great question because I don't know that there's like a solid explanation for that, because honestly, I don't know that I recognized it, right, when I was a young person. So in high school and in college, very often I had partners where like I thought of myself as monogamous, like I did with, but there were only shorter periods of time in which the monogamy would happen. And then inevitably, the relationship would shift and it would become what we would refer to now as being like more open. And in fact, my very first serious relationship with someone where we were never exclusive and we were absolutely in love with each other, and we absolutely also saw other people. In fact, we had a contest going as to who could make out with more people, and so it was this like constant like attempting to find other people to make out with. And in the moment it didn't necessarily feel like it was a lifestyle choice. It was just what I was doing. And I definitely, because I grew up in the 80s and and this was all happening in the 80s. And certainly there was a lot of issues surrounding sexual promiscuity, especially in the second half of the 80s with the AIDS epidemic and things happening that like promiscuity was really not looked well upon. And we certainly didn't have the kind of slut positive messaging that we can have in some places today. And so I definitely participated in behavior that now, and I look back on it, I'm like, oh, I was absolutely being, whether we call it polyamory or non-monogamy or whatever, but like that was how I was. So even like we called it different things, but it was still happening then. I talked to a friend of mine who knew me then when we started coming out about all of this, like a year and a half ago, and or more, a little more. And they said, you've always been like that. And I was like, what do you mean? And they were like, well, don't you remember that when you were with this person, you were also dating these other people? And when you were with this person, you were also seeing these people. They were like, you're always like that. And I was like, oh, I guess I was. But it wasn't something that I thought of as being anything other than what it was. And like it was undefined at the time.
So did that make managing dating and relationships in some ways easier? Because like for me, I'm a serially monogamous, whatever. I date one person at a time. And it's been challenging. And between dates, between relationships, for me, it can be very difficult. And I wonder if I knew I had multiple partners, it'd be like, well, oh, well, this one didn't work out, but I know I'm not going to be alone because I've got that one. Does it make it easier?
Certainly, as a young person, sometimes it did. And sometimes it didn't, because sometimes it was, I remember being frustrated at times with some of my partners where I wanted more from them. It wasn't like I was always satisfied. Like it was, it was like, but I sometimes like you didn't match up. Obviously, that's kind of what happens in life, is that you often have partners you think are great, and then it just doesn't quite like match, like your emotions don't match, or you're not compatible in other ways, or whatever happens, right? And I remember being like super dissatisfied with that, and it was never like, I don't remember thinking, oh well, like this isn't working out with this person, but at least I have this other person. Even if that was the case, it wasn't necessarily how my brain processed it.
Interesting.
And now it's different, because my husband, there is no place in my brain where I don't know that I'm going to grow old with my husband as my partner. Like he is so solidly entwined and part of my life that like I can't even imagine like not having him. But I'm also now in another relationship that is more serious than prior situations. But it's not a question of, oh, well, if it doesn't work out with my husband, then I can just, be with my other partner, right?
Let's go to the relationship stage. You got your husband and you decide. Did you tell the kids?
Yes.
And how did they react?
We raised our kids in a pretty sex positive environment and very, very open. I don't know that they've always loved that. And they were, I would say, I think like any kid, they don't want to hear about their parents' sex life. And so it was kind of like, okay, you guys do what you're going to do, but they just don't want to like know anything about it.
It's not like you're bringing partners home and having orgies and going totally.
Correct. There's not, well, we are bringing partners home in the sense that like my husband has partners that our kids know, or at least one of them that our kids know. And my partner has been to the house quite a lot of times. And so they do know that those people are our partners. I mean, I'm a very affectionate person with kind of everybody. So like they're used to seeing me be physically affectionate with people. I think it is a different thing in their brain with these people, because they know that there's something else there, but like I think they mainly they're trying to get used to it.
And do the partners that you both have, are they, I think you referred last time to him as your boyfriend, so it's just the two of you, just your husband and your boyfriend at this point?
Yes.
And then does your husband have a similar situation, or does he have multiple girlfriends?
He's has two girlfriends right now.
And is it as serious? Are they part of the whole polycule kind of idea where everybody's sort of helping everything in the family, or these are just social or romantic?
They are regular people that we see, and there are times where we're all kind of together. I mean, we have a big New Year's party every year, and they were all at the New Year's party with their partners, the ones who have other partners, because my boyfriend is married and one of my husband's partners is married. We've all like been around each other and are all friends, and in fact, like I was friends with my boyfriend's wife well before they started dating. We all spend time together when there's like kind of big group settings anyway, but we don't necessarily like hang out as a polycule necessarily. But like I was saying, my partners, my boyfriend's wife and I were friends well before they even started dating. So I mean, and she and I hung out last week. One of my husband's partners has been a good friend of mine since I was a teenager. So like she's been a good friend. She is a good friend. So there's that.
So for the audience, explain now, this is a form of open relationship, but you are in committed partnerships. Is it exclusive?
Yeah.
Have that conversation like we're exclusive to each other except the husband and the boyfriend, or how does that all work?
So technically speaking, no, there's not really exclusivity in any of the relationships as far as I know. Like my husband would be free to see somebody else if he wanted to. He, I don't think, has the time between three of us. I have, over the last like year and a half that my boyfriend and I have been together, I have occasionally seen other people, but not in any kind of serious way. I like to kiss people. So like I've made out with friends of mine, that kind of a thing. I am personally not interested in pursuing like another relationship, but it's not like completely exclusive. Like I only see my husband and my boyfriend.
Is that the boundary? Like making out is okay, but intercourse is not, or it doesn't really matter? It's like as long as you do it safely within the guidelines of our family.
It's more the second thing. Yeah. Yeah. And my boyfriend has seen other people, or at least another person since. So, I mean, it's just personal preference. And as long as there's openness and safety and honesty about it in whatever way makes the most sense.
Do you ever get jealous? Or does your husband, I guess?
I'm actually kind of a jealous person by nature. It's something that I have struggled with since I was young. However, not about that. So I get jealous about other things, but not necessarily about sex, which I recognize as odd, or at least unusual. And in terms of my husband's partners, like I mean, people always are going to have situations where they feel jealous about things that their partners are doing, right? It's like, oh, like I think I'm sometimes more jealous of my husband's work than I am of his partners because he works so much. And so for our relationship, there's always been this, I'm a little more angry at work than I am at his partners, because for me, when he's with his partners, at least it's not for me any different really than if he was going out with friends. It's just a question of balance and making sure that I feel like I am the priority and that other people are like that. As long as I feel loved and taken care of, then I wouldn't want a situation where my husband couldn't go out and do other things, whether that is having sex with someone else or golfing. Like to me, it doesn't matter in that way.
If you like this episode and want to hear more, you can listen to the full interview wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Taboo to Truth or check out the link in the description.